Good communication is a signal of your competence and a signal of your potential within the organization, which is why it is so worth it to practice these tools and get really good at them. I have seen over and over that when you learn to speak about your work in a way that is impressive and you learn how to speak to your audience in a way that shows them that you know how to lead, you dramatically speed up your path to leadership within your organization. Welcome to the Art of Speaking Up, a podcast that helps professional women access the limitless potential that lies within them. I'm your host, Jessica Guzik, and my mission is to help you find that spark inside you that has the power to transform your career in ways you may not have thought possible. I'm so excited that you're here. And now, on to the show. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Today's episode is all about communicating really, really effectively. If you are someone who wants to stand out in a corporate environment and develop a reputation that gets you promoted, then the words that you say matter. And one of the most important things you need to do is distinguish yourself by communicating super effectively. Today's episode is all about helping you do that. Today, I'm going to share with you 5 common scenarios that most professionals face at work, and I'm going to walk you through how you should and shouldn't articulate yourself in those scenarios. For each scenario, I'm going to share an example of communication that isn't super effective. And then I'm going to flip it around and fix it and show you how to communicate in a way that is super effective. Now, before I get into these scenarios and into the teachings, I just want to caveat this by saying, please don't judge yourself. The title of this episode is Phrases Executives Love and Don't Love to Hear. And I specifically didn't name the episode Phrases Executives Love and Hate to Hear, because there's nothing horribly wrong with the not so great examples that I'm going to be sharing. They just represent a missed opportunity to build your reputation and really grab the attention of your executive audience. So keep that in mind and let's get into the scenarios. So the first scenario that I'm going to help you with is what to say when kicking off a discussion. So let's start with what I don't recommend you say. I don't recommend you say, here's what we're going to be talking about today. The reason that I don't recommend this is because executives are bombarded with so much information throughout the day. And when you kick off by saying, here's what we're talking about, you are just putting more information into their brains and they're already feeling overloaded. Instead, I want you to say, here's why we're excited to talk with you today. So I shifted from here's what we're talking about to here's why we're excited. This is going to go over much better with an executive audience because number one, you are focused on the bigger business goal, which is what they are most interested in. Number two, you are sharing key high-level context that helps them understand where your work fits in to the broader mission of the organization. And number three, you're engaging them emotionally. When you talk to them about why your work matters, that gets them excited about the impact that you are having within the organization. Now, let's move into the second example, which is closely related. So the second scenario is when you are sharing a piece of work that you did. So here's what I don't recommend you say. I don't recommend you say, here is the work that I did. So for you, this might look like, here is my project plan. Here are the results of my campaign, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the reason this doesn't work is very connected to what I just shared. Executives are bombarded with information all day long, and the last thing that they want is more information. A really easy way to understand this is to use yourself as an example. When you are midway through your workday, how do you feel about someone busting into your office and being like, hey, I have a ton of information that I need to share with you right now? I don't know about you, but if that happened to me, I would want to hide under my desk and go away. This is why it's so important to pivot from the information dump style of communicating to a more inspirational, emotionally engaging way of communicating. So instead of saying, here's the work I did, I want you to say, here's the work I did, and here's what this means for the business. When you include that extra part and you say, here's what this means for the business, number one, it gets your audience excited because you're showing them how your work is driving impact. And this is going to make them more receptive to the information dump that they are about to receive. But number two, it also helps them see the context of your work, and it helps them understand how your specific project plugs into the bigger business objectives. This is very important because executives sit above you in the organization. This means, by definition, your work is much more in the weeds than the things that they are working on. So if you don't show them how your work connects to the bigger picture, what you're doing is you're taking them down into the weeds. And sometimes when we do that, that can prevent us from looking super sophisticated. It can make us look more junior. So now I want to move into the third scenario. The third scenario is when you are sharing a suggestion. Here's what I don't recommend you say. I don't recommend you say, here's my suggestion. Now, hold on. Let me caveat this before I go any further. For some of you listening, saying, here's my suggestion is a huge effing win because you are working on building your confidence and finding your voice in the room. So I just want to make it clear that if it's your goal to speak up more and get your ideas out there, then saying, here's my suggestion is a massive leap forward. So it's not that I don't want you to share your suggestion. It's just that I want to teach you how to make it sound really, really good. So the reason here's my suggestion isn't the most effective way to communicate is because it assumes that your audience already trusts you and already sees you as credible. I want you to imagine that you are shopping in a store with your friend and you're picking out clothes and a random, unimpressive looking stranger comes up to you and says, here's my suggestion for the type of clothes I think you should be purchasing. You would think that that was weird. And you would think to yourself, why the heck does this person think they should be telling me what clothing to buy? This little anecdote illustrates the idea that if we are going to share a suggestion, we want to first get our audience to trust us and see us as credible. This is why, instead of saying, here's my suggestion, I recommend you say, if our goal is to blank, here's my suggestion for how we can get there. Now, the reason that this is so effective is because it instantly makes you trustworthy and credible. You're not just jumping in with a raw suggestion, you're showing your audience that you've thought through the value of your suggestion, and you're showing them that your suggestion is designed to meet a very specific goal. So you will instantly sound more credible. Now, I have two more scenarios that I'm going to cover. I'm going to cover the scenario of sharing bad news, with executive stakeholders, and I'm going to cover the scenario of disagreeing with executive stakeholders. Before I get into that part of the episode, we're going to take a quick break, and I'll catch you on the other side. If you are enjoying this episode, then you are going to love my free worksheet. It is called 5 Phrases to Help You Sound Like a Leader. In this worksheet, I teach you 5 phrases that you can use at work to impress your boss and executives. If this episode is helping you, the worksheet teaches you new phrases that I don't cover in today's episode, and it even gives you tips to help you feel confident using the phrases. You can grab this worksheet for free by clicking the link in the show notes or going to jessguzikcoaching.com/phrases. And now back to the episode. Okay, we are back, and the final 2 scenarios are the stickier ones. So I'm going to talk about sharing bad news and disagreeing with a stakeholder. So there will be times in your career where you are going to have to share bad news with your boss or with leaders. This is normal. Doesn't mean you're bad at your job. It's pretty typical for obstacles and failures to happen, even when your leadership and your execution is top-notch, which means you have to learn how to communicate this information effectively. So the example of bad news that I'm going to share is being behind on a project timeline. So here's what I don't recommend you say. I don't recommend you say, here's why we're behind on the timeline. The reason that you shouldn't say it this way is because you are introducing a problem. You are coming to your executive audience with a bad thing. Now, you might be thinking, Jess, there is a problem. This is a bad thing. So how else am I supposed to say it? And this is where being a word super ninja is really, really important. Something that you have to learn to do if you want to get ahead in corporate is you have to be able to spin things into a positive story. Now, you don't have to be unethical, and you don't have to lie, and you don't have to pretend like things are great if they're not going well, but you do need to know how to deliver information in a way that makes you look good, even when circumstances aren't going great. So here is how I recommend you do that. Instead of saying, here's why we're behind on the timeline, what I want you to say is, an obstacle came up. Let me tell you how we're handling it. We are adjusting the timeline, and I will walk you through the adjustments that we're making. So this is so much better than the first example, and I hope you can kind of hear and feel how much more confident this is. The reason it works is because instead of just plopping a problem on everyone's lap, you are coming in with full ownership of the problem. And more importantly, you are telling the story of the solution that you have put in place. It really transforms you from someone who's like, oh no, this bad thing is happening, let me tell you about it, to someone who's coming in the room and saying, hey, an obstacle came up, but don't worry, I have it handled. And that is exactly the kind of confidence that executives are looking for. They want to see that you can own the room and hold your own, even when circumstances aren't ideal. And when you speak this way, you're really able to show them that. Okay, the final scenario is what to say when you are disagreeing with an executive stakeholder. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, disagree with an executive stakeholder, shouldn't I agree to them because they sit above me in the organization and it would be disrespectful to disagree with them? If you are having that thought, I have a very specific episode of the podcast that you must listen to that will teach you why it is important to disagree and why being agreeable isn't always the best thing for building a strong reputation as a leader. If you want to listen to that episode, I'm going to link it in the show notes so you can find it easily. But one of the takeaways from that episode is it's a good thing to disagree with executives. And so I want to teach you how to do that effectively. So here's what I don't recommend you say when you are disagreeing with an executive. I don't recommend you say, sorry, we can't do it that way. The reason I don't recommend this is because this is not collaborative. You are shooting down the person's suggestion. And also, when we shoot down someone's suggestion, it is likely to make them defensive. And if we're talking with a stakeholder who is more senior than us, we don't want to poke them in a way that's going to make them upset or a way that's going to cause them to think negatively of us. So when we're disagreeing, we want to be really strategic and thoughtful, and we want to go back into super ninja mode and really package our disagreement in a way that's going to make us look good and in a way that's going to make the stakeholder feel good. So instead of saying, sorry, we can't do it that way, what I want you to say is, interesting idea. Let's explore that. Why don't I walk you through the core trade-offs we face depending on which option we choose? So in this situation, you are demonstrating an openness to hearing the stakeholder's suggestion without just immediately going along with it. What you're saying is, cool idea. Let's look at it, but let's look at the trade-offs. This gives your stakeholder space to be heard without you necessarily having to go in a direction that you think is incorrect. And what's even more powerful about this example is when you tell your stakeholder that you want to talk about the trade-offs of their suggestion, it demonstrates mature leadership thinking. Mature leaders aren't going to say, no, we can't do it that way. Mature leaders are going to say, hey, let's look at the trade-offs. Because there's rarely a correct way and an incorrect way to do things within an organization. There are only trade-offs. So maybe your stakeholder wants you to produce a very detailed deliverable. That's not necessarily right or wrong. It just depends on the trade-off. That's probably going to require more time and more resources. Is it worth it to the stakeholder to put in extra time and resources to get that deeper level of detail? If you, as the leader, can drive that mature conversation, people will have so much respect for you, and the executives who sit above you in the organization are going to turn to you to lead them through these key decisions. This is why good communication matters so much, because when you communicate well, it's not just that you're sharing information clearly, it's that you are showing people that you are a leader. Good communication is a signal of your competence and a signal of your potential within the organization, which is why it is so worth it to practice these tools and get really good at them. This is why I emphasize executive communication so much on the podcast and in my client work. I have seen over and over that when you learn to speak about your work in a way that is impressive, and you learn how to speak to your audience in a way that shows them that you know how to lead, you dramatically speed up your path to leadership within your organization. Now, if you are ready to get really serious about building best-in-class executive communication skills so that you are regularly impressing those senior level stakeholders whenever you are in the room with them, then I want to invite you to come work with me inside of my program, the Art of Speaking Up Academy. Inside the Art of Speaking Up Academy, I help you with 2 ingredients that are essential for your success as a leader. Number 1, I help you master the foundations of executive communication so that you know how to speak in a way that shows people you are a leader. And number 2, I help you build confidence. When you feel confident inside, you don't hesitate to speak up and you don't hesitate to take on that bigger, bolder leadership role in the room. If that is a transformation that you are ready for, I want to invite you to add yourself to the waitlist by clicking the link in the show notes or by going to jessguzikcoaching.com/academy. Once you join the waitlist, you will be first to find out when a cohort opens up. And when you're on the waitlist, you qualify for exclusive waitlist-only bonuses. I rotate the bonuses, so sometimes you'll get a bonus workshop, sometimes you'll get a free private session with me. But regardless of what the bonus is, being on the waitlist ensures that you will get it. To add yourself, click the link in the show notes or go to jessguzikcoaching.com/academy. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. This was so much fun, and I'll catch you next week. Bye.